Welcome to another Textile Toolbox film here on our YouTube channel. Today's little film is about using your own wardrobe as a site of inquiry as a designer and as a design researcher. It's a really simple but very fruitful task. We first did this as a team at our research centre as part of the Worn Again Rethinking Recycled Textiles AHRC project in around 2005, and Dr. Kate Fletcher came in and ran this little task with us where she had asked us to come in and bring with us something that we wore a lot and something that we had never worn at all. And it was an exercise with about sort of 8 or 9 of us staff researchers, and it was really insightful and useful. And so ever since then, really, we've used this as a warm-up exercise as part of larger workshops. And it can lead to all kinds of insights. It's really great, I think, in particular for getting designers to think about their own clothes and their own buying habits and their own preferences for textiles and colour and pattern and feel. And then to sort of build that into a design brief, really thinking about those very personal, very subjective reasons why we buy clothes and then choose to wear some clothes more than others, and whether there is a sort of success criteria in there for a designer to look for. Kate Fletcher has gone on to write a book called Opening Up the Wardrobe, a methods book, which came out in 2017, which she edited with another academic called Ingun Klepp. And so there's probably a really good place to go to look for a more sort of structured, rounded view of how to use the wardrobe for research and as a sort of legitimate research method. We actually use this, like I said, just as a warm-up really. We often use it with the students to get them thinking, to get to know each other, to share some small stories at the beginning of other exercises. And we have used this as well with industry groups and had some really insightful sessions where we've ask them to bring in things that they own from their own company, from the company that they work for, and of those things they find from the brand in their own workshop, which are the things that they're wearing a lot and which are the things that they're wearing that they're not. And that has led to some really nice sort of insights to begin a design process in a company, because the designers in the room sort of understood that there was a real difference between the kind of thinking and processes and research that they put into making a garment sustainable as well, but that actually that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be successful, that it's going to be worn a lot or used in the right way, or even liked. So this is sort of, I've put together a worksheet for you to download and use alongside this video, and then get together a group of you to sort of test out some of the insights, to draw out some of the insights that you can use after you've had a sort of reflective moment on your own with your own wardrobe. So it's called Wardrobe Insights, and I'll just take you through what the resource sheet asks of you. So really it says, what does your wardrobe say about you? What choices are you making as a consumer and why? And can you learn about design from looking closely at your own preferences? So really you start, it's a sort of we recommend you do this in 2 stages. So the first thing is just you on your own with your wardrobe, with your clothes. Make 3 piles. The first pile is clothes that you wear a lot. You wear them often, you've owned them for a long time. for you they represent really sort of successful garments. And then a middle pile is clothes that you wear infrequently, quite rarely, really, but you still own them, you don't want to give them away, you want to keep them. And then clothes you never wear. So very, very rarely do you ever wear these things, if at all. And we can see that there is research that shows that people do buy things that they don't wear. So it's going to be really useful to understand why that happens. So you've got your 3 piles, and then you've got to ask yourself some key questions. So sort of take one garment at a time, look at them really closely, and start to make a note of their attributes. And you'll find on this worksheet that there is a table for you to fill out called a self-survey. So here you can put in a short description of the item that you're looking at, and then describe its physical aspects that make this what it is for you, either well worn or not worn, and then any emotional aspects that make this well worn or not worn. So for example, it could be that your mum bought it for you for Christmas from a really nice little craft fair that the 2 of you go to together every year. So sort of like there's often an emotional reason why we have something in our wardrobe, why we keep it, and why we love it to bits and wear it a lot. But conversely, we can have that emotional attachment and not wear it, not use it. So this is a sort of way of logging those things and getting them down in writing and really having a chance to look at them closely. And then for the second part of this exercise, we recommend that you get a group of you together that have done this. So we sort of say maybe take 2 hours to do the first part, the self-survey, and then come together and share these stories with each other. So you choose a well-worn garment, and then you choose to talk about something that you've never worn at all. And then together as a group, you begin to note what are the common physical characteristics and what are the common emotional characteristics. So for each of those types, the well-worn, the never worn, and the middle ground, got it, own it, wear it, want to keep it, don't want to give it away, but I don't really wear it that much. For those 3 different categories, together as a little group of you, start to map out and pull out the kind of common characteristics. And then from that, really the last thing that this says is, can you see a design brief here? What ideas does this process give you for creating something new? Ultimately, can you make something that you know people are more likely to want and to wear and to use and to keep? And can you avoid the things that mean that something doesn't get worn or used? So I'll give you a little insight into some of my pieces, and just by way really of giving you an example of how this might run, but I could have picked anything, and I have done this exercise hundreds and hundreds of times, and so I've seen hundreds and hundreds of different garments get dissected and talked about. It is a brilliant way of getting, I am quite surprised at working, when I work with designers, how sort of disconnected they are in terms of their own buying habits and preferences and their design decisions that they're making. And I think the ultimate sort of ambition with this is to bring those 2 things together a little bit more. So I pulled out some things to talk about with you. So for my, managed to trap it underneath the stool. For my extremely well-worn garment, this is something, I think this is the oldest garment probably in my wardrobe. It's a 1950s black silk duster coat, and I bought this when I was about 19 from an antiques textiles market in Bath. It hasn't aged at all. The fabric is still perfect, and it's just this very simple construction. You can see that it's sort of just got open seams, zigzagged hems. It was made not particularly well, actually, in some respects when you look at it closely, in an incredibly simple way, but it's just this awesomely useful piece. I can have this very smart over an evening dress going out on a summer evening, or I actually wear it quite a lot now to work, where I just sort of slip it on over a jumper and a skirt, or jumper and jeans even, and it gives a kind of maybe formal top layer to something quite informal. So from a physical point of view, it's just supremely simple and adaptable. And actually from an emotional perspective, the fact that I still own this and I still find that it fits me and that it's useful all these years later, I won't tell you how many years later, but quite a few years later, I just find that really comforting and sort of special. And I have repaired it many times. It constantly needs rehemming, because it would have been stitched using just cotton stitching, of course. It sort of predates synthetic threads, I would think. So the stitching when you have old garments does go, and you do need to keep repairing and replacing stitches, which I sort of intend to do like forever, basically, and maybe hand this down to my daughter. So it's a really, really gorgeous, simple piece that is so classic, and whatever classic is, this is definitely in that category. Okay. She throws it to one side. Then the next, it's on my lap. This is the never worn shame piece. This I bought last summer in a sale, and it's because I actually have another very long life piece in a black sort of jersey weight fabric, which is a Zandra Rhodes piece, which keeps going for years and years and years too, and it's getting a little bit tatty and worn now, and I love it so much. I was sort of looking to find something that would be a similar cut, and so I found this drapey cowl neck top that I thought would do the job, but it had this metal chain link around the shoulder in a gold sort of cheap chain, which I knew I was going to sort of take off, and then the idea was that I would replace that with something else. So it's never been worn, and it's a year old, and I'm hoping it might get worn. I'm thinking of making the channels here slightly bigger so that I can put a huge chunky black satin ribbon through the channels and then have it sort of like hanging down. But it's not worn yet, and I intend to wear it. But I've also learned that because it doesn't have sleeves, I'm really not comfortable with it. Even in the hottest of weather, I really don't like being sleeveless anymore. So I kind of bought that without realising it, which, you know, I feel like I should know that by now, but sometimes it's just not immediately there in front of you. You haven't got the absolute checklist, and, you know, it's a sort of reflection on why spending time with our wardrobe can be really useful in terms of making good consumption decisions. But even so, often when you finally get the piece that you've decided to invest in back home, it doesn't quite work the way you want it to work. There are always sort of reasons. So this never worn piece I'm intending to turn it into a worn quite often, maybe even a worn to death, but it's got a little way to go yet. And I'm hoping with lockdown time I'll actually get round to making the alterations. Let's see. And then this is in my middle section. Now the middle section of people's wardrobes are what people estimate to be around 70% of what we own. It's this kind of stuff that we have, which we like. We don't love it? Maybe we do, but we just don't wear it that much. Once, twice a year, maybe a few times more. It's certainly just not one of those staple pieces that you wear a lot. I grabbed this because obviously there's a lot in my middle of my wardrobe I could have chosen. I actually do really like this. I think it came from Anthropology a couple of years ago. I think I probably bought it in the sale. And it's one of those summer moments where I feel, you know, a little bit relaxed and exotic. But it's got decoration on it, so it has a certain message. So, you know, it's definitely not something I would wear to work. You know, maybe I would wear it at home in the summer, but it's got big sleeves which drip into cooking and things. So, you know, you definitely can't wear it in that context. So I've got it and I like it and I'm going to keep it, but I'm not wearing it that often. And so the exercise is useful to think of just understanding why I'm not wearing it that often. It could lead to different outcomes. It could be that when you ask yourself these questions, you think, you know what, I'm never going to wear that. It's actually time to give it to the second hand. Or you think, yeah, actually, I found this, I've rediscovered it, I'm going to wear it a lot more. Why aren't I wearing it? Etc. Anyway, this is a really nice little task you can just do it on your own, the self-survey, and finish at that point. Or you can get a group of you together. If you work for a brand, then I recommend you get your sort of team together and try this out. And like I say, not just with your own things that you own, but if you're in a brand situation, then try it with the products that you have taken home from that brand, because we found that was a really, really common thing. If you're a designer and you work in a fashion label, you've probably got quite a lot of those pieces at home. You may have even designed some of those pieces and sort of kept one. Put it through this analysis and see if it actually throws up some design ideas for you. And it's just sort of general good health for your wardrobe too. Take a close look at what you own, understand it a little bit more, look for what you need to repair, and then try to bring some of those sort of success stories through with you when you're next going to buy something, and ask yourself, you know, which of those three categories is this likely to fall into? Okay, so that's the Wardrobe Insights tool. Like I say, comes from an idea that we worked on with Kate Fletcher back in 2005. You can use it just as a sort of warm-up and as a sort of personal exercise, or you can build it up by integrating some other methods and use it as part of research. So I hope that's been useful, and see you again soon.